soon as I finished, I kind of went into my own trying to change the world type of thing. I also work during the day as a civil engineer for a municipality, so I know how government works. I've also been kind of embedded in politics since I was born, not really by choice, but my family is really political, and I've always been a big Republican, so that's kind of where this idea grew from, and we'll get to that. So, yeah, I guess the first, I'll just figure out say who he is.
My name is Andrew Creedus. I'm an attorney as well. I worked for a boutique firm in Manhattan for about a year and a half, and then decided to venture off on my own, start my own practice. So Doug and I grew up together. We've known each other since we were 5 years old. And, we had a shared passion for this idea, and like to see it come to fruition.
So, first let me say, well, we're not coders or programmers or really web developers. But what we think this idea needs is somebody to organize it and spearhead it. And really, we're trying to gather a following. Okay? So we just started it like literally a couple of days ago. We tried to have it in time for the social media week that really didn't work out. But we have it now, and we're introducing it. And this is a way for people to come learn about the concept of what is GovTogether. So GovTogether is basically a direct democracy system. And what we're looking to do is we're not looking to, go to Washington, D.C. and have them change the Constitution. What we're looking to do is basically implement the direct democracy through the current representative system. So our plan of action is to gather a following of people that like this concept through Facebook, through Twitter, through this, our simple coming soon page. And then what we want to do is come 2012, we want to put somebody up on the ballot for a U.S. congressman, one of the districts. And he's going to run, and his one pledge to the people is going to be, I pledge to abide by this direct democracy system. And basically, the system is going to be a place where the constituents can come, learn about issues, deliberate, and actually vote on issues. And then the congressman will actually walk into Congress and vote as he was told by the system. So that's the basic concept. There's obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of things like running through people's heads right now, like immediate concerns. And that's part of the reason why we want to air it out. So we think part of the way this is going to happen is by coming to the people, and really deliberating on this concept. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? If it is a good thing, how do we do it right? You guys had a good point, really saying the coding and the building really isn't the hard part, and that's kind of what we believe. Once we have a following, people ready to do this, we think we'll be able to build a system. So I'll just go to start on details on our plan of action.
So as far as the plan of action, so essentially what we want to do initially, because we're essentially just proposing a web-based utility. It'll be more than just web-based through telephoning, because not every segment of society uses the internet and is internet savvy. Obviously, what we're proposing, if it's going to work, should be inclusive. We're just proposing a utility where obviously this is going to come to fruition. We need some sort of societal consent. We have the authority to say how government should work. We need at least one voting district to want to adopt this system, and should that happen, obviously a lot of the nation's going to find out about that, and hopefully that has produced a lot of conversation about it. So what you want to do is raise awareness to sort of build a coalition, essentially. Air out the idea, get scholars, experts, practitioners, technologists to comment on the idea, to help us refine the idea, and then to raise funds to actually build the system, experiment with the system, and then once we have that, our plan to sort of launch the system is to pick one particular voting district, campaign there, and as far as who the actual candidate would be, it could be someone that comes forward on their own, it could be someone that the community nominates.
Our real first milestone, essentially after building the system, would be getting somebody on the ballot for 2012. Whether we, have any chance of winning an election. We think just getting somebody on one of the ballots in the U.S. in 2012 would really start to get this idea out there. So, I mean, we're going to open it. I see people are already raising hands.
And you know what, to do this, to be polite, because I know that they're gonna get 1,000 little questions, I'm gonna help moderate this.
All right.
So,
I just say one other thing before we go, like, into questions. If you guys can, for those of you, whether you believe in this or against it, to go to Gut Together, and if you could enter your email and vote yay or nay, and that's how we're gonna start it. And when you enter your email, it's gonna provide you with a link that you can then share to other people, and we're gonna go from there. Our plan is to raise funds through Kickstarter or maybe just on our own. And what we want to do is eventually, maybe July 4th, we're hoping, is to kind of throw some kind of party that's gonna be thanking all the people that are helping spread this idea. So,
are you guys ready?
do this, yeah.
Are you genuinely ready? Do you want to sit up here just in case? And also like the chicken coop wire just in case?
The other thing too is if other people have answers to questions, we're open to answers too, not just questions.
All right.
Good.
First question.
Okay, so kudos for creating what is the start of a great idea. There's a certain innocence to it, though. The first concern that I have has to do with if a congressman is expected to vote according to what the constituency says, then the problem is that some issues are going to be easy, no-brainers. Do you want clean water? Yes. Most people, you're going to be able to rely on that. When it comes to certain social issues, though, majority does not mean right. And that's always something that's been scary in this country, is that majorities might vote, we want one thing to go one way, but, then activists have to come in and say, well, you know what, it's still not right.
Right.
We got countless, things in history that show us that. So I just want to know how that can be handled by a system.
Okay, well, first of all, like I said, we're not amending the Constitution here. The Bill of Rights is still going to exist. There's going to be other protections that are still in the Constitution, there's still going to be separation of powers. So when people start, screaming tyranny by the majority, it's really kind of like textbook tyranny of the majority. We don't see how that would possibly evolve from a system like this. Second of all, what we think, I just want to say, it's really about want to have a say every day. So now, instead of just voting for a congressman and then 2 years later voting again, the community has a say literally every day. So imagine the way things work now is, let's say you're in a district, Republicans win 51%, and they're the majority, they won 51%. The minority is silent for 2 years. They have absolutely no say in that district. Now with this system, they'll have a say every day, because they may lose on issue number one, but they could win the following day. So now, we really think this gives more power to minorities, because now they can fight on every single particular issue, as opposed to losing an election where, their representative doesn't win, and then they're silent. So, that's our biggest argument against it, is that we really think this is empowering the individual, as opposed to silencing.
And another thing is that because, the communities will have the power to vote directly in legislation, so presumably if there's an issue that affects minorities, they're going to take it much more personally than the majority would, so they're going to be more vocal about it. So they're the ones that are going to be going out and lobbying their own neighbors, friends and neighbors within their own communities. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask that you guys try to succinct these questions, these answers down, so only one of you answer out of the two of you out of these things. So Talia.
Okay, I kind of have a couple questions.
Try one.
I'll try to lump them together.
Okay.
So, first of all, I also agree that there's something really exciting about this idea, but I wonder, maybe it just was unclear to me, first of all, if the only people who get to vote are the people in the district that the Congress member represents, and second of all, if that's the way it goes, which I think makes the most sense, because otherwise they forfeit their district, essentially, then would there be a parallel voting for just other people just to say, what they think about something? And then, just to technical checks on like how do you get people registered to vote through this? How do you make sure they only vote once? All those issues.
Yeah, I'll just get you on it. Yeah. So, so there's going to be, so that's like essentially a problem with implementation as far as making sure that the people who are participating in the system are actually from the district that they claim to be. You know, technologists would be able to help us out with that system, whether it's requesting social security information or whatever it might be. Just think of using, you know, your own bank account. I mean, it's been done before. This technology, whether it's problems with encryption or whatever it might be, already exists. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then as far as who would be voting, it would be, you know, citizens, so 18 years and older people are eligible to vote. But the good thing about this system is you can also take into consideration the broader community. So you can take into consideration 10-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, and just sort of have their nominal vote. You know, it might not count towards what the congressman has to respond to, but at least he could have that information because in the future, they're going to form his constituency, or they're eventually going to have the ability to vote. So that might be something that he might want to have in the back of, he or she might want to have in the back of their minds, taking into consideration. Then it was the third question. It was,
I guess it's just what was.
oh, then parallel voting.
Yeah.
Yes, it would just be by district.
Per district, yeah, and like Spirit was saying, we're not looking to amend any of the rules, but because the system will allow additional people to have a say, we'll let their voices be heard, but their votes won't necessarily count in the pledge that the congressman will have to abide by.
Okay. Tom? You're the third person that had your hand up.
No,
Okay.
well, I do have a question. How many votes are there in Congress a year?
I don't know the exact number.
There's multiple.
How many times do people listen to Ashton Kutcher when he tweets out, to eat a hamburger, people are on their phones all day, like, they're engaged in a lot of productive things, but also, we think people have the time, if done right, if we could keep in constant contact.
I think the more appropriate question to ask is, how do you plan on dealing with the procedural votes for things that are coming up? Because, going into Congress, a bill is a composition of about 100 different votes. Like, how do you plan on conceptually, I mean, technology can solve a lot of different things, especially with different amendments. Do you vote for this amendment? Do you not vote for this amendment? But conceptually, how would you handle something like that?
Well, for one, the full-time job of the congressman now is going to be to really parse the bill, and to break it down and to provide that information to the people. And then the community itself is going to come in. Think of any community, like I'm from Nassau County. Within that community, there are plenty of professionals, there are plenty of people who work in the political world who will have their say as well. So, I mean, we're really crowdsourcing here, and we think by crowdsourcing, we're going to have some really good information that's going to be out there, and people will be able to come together and simplify it for everybody.
Okay. I'm going to go to this side because there's so few hands. There's one gentleman who had his hand up here.
I was actually going to ask the question you just asked.
I am so sorry about that. Okay, all right.
Okay, so an observation with a recommendation and my question. The observation is you're going to have to plan for low voter turnout.
Right.
Quorums. What? Quorums. Yeah. For any given vote, you may not have a very large vote, which those people who do vote could skew the result. So I would suggest that below a certain threshold, that the vote result be advisory rather than binding on the Congress critter that you've got. And the question is, in terms of security, you waved this off a little bit and said these are solved problems. In terms of voting, that's not quite true, all right? You've got, if you want everybody's votes to count, then giving them some confidence that their vote has been counted and letting them verify it is a very good thing. On the other hand, if the person who cast the vote can verify their vote, then so can a guy standing over their shoulder with a sap, wanting them to vote a particular way. all right? So,
Can you explain what SAP is?
A blackjack?
A beat and sticks.
Okay, a rubber
Physical
hose?
force.
Yes.
Or money.
Okay, and, you know, this is a problem with, this is not a third world problem, all right? This happens in this country, in unions, for example, that do not have secret ballots.
Right, well, yeah, I mean, we're gonna try to maintain secrecy at all, you know, it's gonna be done in the privacy of your home, on your phone, just like you bank at home, you bank on your phone. So, I don't know if you meant literally somebody standing over your shoulder, or if you meant like, because we're showing the one guy how he voted, that we'd be showing everybody how he voted?
No, if you're showing the one guy, how he voted, then a guy literally standing over his shoulder, or saying, you know, I'm going to check up, I'm gonna come to your house and check to see how you voted, is a potential problem. So if you show if you have the system show the voter how they voted.
No, that's not what we're contemplating now. Which is not,
You mean the person
the debating doesn't necessarily have to be anonymous.
Right.
You could have a, you know, a nickname on the website, whatever it would be.
No,
If you wanted
I
to.
meant, does the person who voted
Mhm.
get to see how their vote was recorded?
Yes.
Then if that's the case, then somebody that's standing over their shoulder can see that same information.
Right, but they would see it as like a number, you know, like they wouldn't know that it's Doug Tuman who voted this way.
If they're standing,
would. Oh, they're standing right behind them, yeah, but I think that's like I don't know.
Okay, all right, I wanna, there's a lot of questions that are out here. Robert?
One of my concerns is how much this empowers the groups that are sophisticated in mobilizing participation with outreach, with whatever, and also what that means about the exclusion of those who are not carrying their smartphones or their iPads or their whatever with them all the time, and just, you know, so that you could get a very skewed proportion, you know, very selected proportion of the population.
I mean, that's certainly an issue. I don't know if you heard that, but what, like Spiro had mentioned, we want to kind of, you know, add a traditional telephone system into it. And the first district we picked, I mean, we could try to choose a district where we think people really are ready technically for the system. We don't need to start in a district where, you know, only, you know, 50% of the people have access, you know, are using the internet on a daily basis. But we were also contemplating having like an actual storefront, you know, a store in the sense of selling anything, but where people in the community who don't have home computers or don't want to go to an internet cafe to do this, they can come in. We'd have computers there. We'd have consultants, you know, who could help explain how the system works, whatever it might be. So you could have one or two or three, however many would be required. Right, visiting your local congressman, would be visiting a station of computers where it'd essentially be like a staff is helping you. Right, think of it as like a satellite entity of the congressman's own office, own staff.
Hey, I like this. Interesting. You guys are shooting big, which is great. Is there a quicker win you could get? And I think your first win is this yay and nay, like should we start this company or should we just close it down? I think you're obviously winning here. Is there a quicker win? Is there a
Those are all our programmers, by the way.
That's the front row here saying that. Is there a way that you can, rather than, you know, getting somebody behind this who's going through, you know, an election, trying to get elected, which is going to be really difficult, is there a way that you can go to a city council meeting and it's non-binding, it's just, hey, here's one point that's raised, we have this application to try to get some social proof of what you're trying to do. I think what you're doing on the grand scale is really interesting. I think there's smaller steps you can take.
To build up to it, you mean?
Even through here and asking what city or what municipality would you like to see this first? And even if it's voting on do we get tater tots or hash browns for school lunches, right? Something small where people can vote and you can start to see what the interaction is and worry about the big problems. You know, it's going to take a while to build those out, but I think there are some quick wins that you can get.
Right, very much.
All right, Joe.
I'll give my bias straight up. I have a real problem with the whole notion of plebiscites and direct democracy in California. That's the best and worst example. But my question is more towards what Noel was saying. I mean, just from a basic point of view, I don't understand what this gets you more than people writing their congressman when an issue comes along. The problem is timing. A bill could gestate for multiple years, multiple terms. You want to aggregate you want to get a coalition together, a constituency around that, I'm going to pass a national Cooper Scooper law. I'm going to have the people that are for it, they're going to get behind it, but it may come up for any number of procedural votes. It may get stuck in an appropriations bill. It may get tacked onto a defense bill. God only knows, right? And so I don't understand in terms of timing how you envision when you would have the yays and nays on that specific thing. If it's concurrent with when it's actually being voted on in Congress, that doesn't really help influence people beforehand.
Right. So it could be at the inception of it. So if there's like a Senate committee that's contemplating something or however it works, and the congressman catches wind of it, he can sort of pull the community then.
Yeah, they'll be part of the deliberation process as well, and they're going to help create the agenda as well. For that one congressman. Ultimately, they always will vote, and the congressman will have to vote as they said. So on the day of the vote, yes, they're going to cast their vote. But there will be, the congressman, since it's going to be his job to inform the people, he would give them, as soon as he's finding out information, the
So
people
why
are
wouldn't
finding out.
you just do it as a licensing thing where you license it to everybody in Congress and they put it up when they want to get the feedback?
Because that's not a direct democracy at that point, that's trust, we want
That's
this.
That's Poland.
Yeah, we want this congressman to literally pledge to abide and have to abide by these people's votes. The way things work now is, granted, the guy's trying to stay in office, but he really can do whatever he wants when he wants.
Or down. Let's equally discriminate against our congresspeople here.
I like Sherry now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the woman in the back.
Kind of, to take a Fred's angle, because I write about this stuff a lot, is just procedurally, like, in a debate, for example, if this guy's up for election, are you gonna pre-run some issues for him to actually be able, or her to debate on? You're asking whoever this person is to go through an election process on what's basically like the controlled schizophrenia ticket without any.
So he wouldn't.
Sort of a recipe for him to get into the lie, because somebody who's.
Well, actually, he'd be campaigning on the platform of abiding by the system, and then
That's his whole campaign.
his campaign is that he's an advocate. He's essentially a really good lawyer who could always argue both sides.
Well, he's not, if they pose a question, what do you think about, how you feel about abortion? He could say, I have my opinion, but that doesn't really matter because I'm going to be listening to the people. So the whole,
Nobody votes on that issue.
what do you mean? Well, that's,
Nobody has an opinion on the issue.
but that's the district he's running in. So if they care about that issue, they're going to vote on that issue. Right? So yeah, his whole campaign is really about his character, whether trying to get people to trust this concept and trust the system.
Also, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be that the people will be voting on every piece of legislation or none of them. We're giving them the utility. They could have the option of voting on half of them, then for the other half, the congressman could vote as he otherwise would, or however he feels is most beneficial.
Okay, for those of you, I'm gonna take a procedural point here. Those who have questions, raise your hands, so I can see how many questions we have out of the audience. 1, 2, 3. Sir, did you still have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, I think that those are the 7 questions. So there's only 7 questions left. I'm gonna start with the gentleman with the funny hat, because that's Cole's question.
So, to follow up on that, what's the recourse if, God willing, all of the citizens are using the system, but the politician that you elected is untrustworthy, and he says, the hell with it, I'm just gonna vote the way I want?
Okay. Well, the most obvious recourse is he wouldn't win the election the second time around, right? The guy's voted out. What's going to come with that is we probably wouldn't hear from the system for years, It would I would imagine it'd be banned, right? People wouldn't want to hear about it. We are going to try, we haven't figured out exactly how we could essentially hold them to it more than a pledge, but it's really going to be about this guy's character. We're not going to choose somebody, obviously, who we think is looking to do that.
But yeah, the most obvious recourse is that the guy's gonna be voted out, and the experiment is gonna fail.
Okay. Well, it's also, a lot of it is, I'll just comment really quickly, a lot of it is also just about goodwill. I mean, sociologists and psychologists will tell you that when you have a community of trust, trust tends to build more trust. When you have a community of distrust, that tends to build more distrust. So this is a concept a lot of people, once you explain it to, feel good about. They think it's ideally a great thing, idealistically somewhat utopian. And if you could have, enough people actually starting to believe in the idea and the community wanting to adopt a system like this, they can nominate the candidate themselves. The community, the congressman could be a local pastor or something to that extent. I mean, you've got to have a little bit more, you've got to have some sort of skill. It's got to be, it's got to be a little bit, just skill generally, as an individual.
All right.
Yeah, so, I mean, the process is very long with a lot of these bills, and there's also a lot of amendments. And so maybe there's 100 amendments on a bill, and they all usually are voted on, yay or nay. So it seems to me that, being a congressman it's a full-time job for a reason, and, people also, they have other full-time jobs. So how could, the people possibly vote on every single amendment and also understanding those bills that are like 200 pages.
Right.
And, you could parse it down, but, it's not the same thing.
Right. So we see GovTogether as being just one utility that is a part of a larger ecosystem. So we could have, third-party, providers, people that provide content, whether that content is actual text of the bill itself, or whether it's, an abstract of the bill. To the extent that biases might come into that, you could actually say who it is that provides the abstract. And then you could have, synopses of which corporations are for this bill, which corporations are against, which parties, which
parties and
groups,
lobbyists,
whether it's the NRA
and lobby groups will come into the system, and they'll be part of the crowdsourcing. They will be a certain lobby group may say, this is how we're explaining the bill, and then you'll be able to look at another group, this is how they're explaining the bill and how they think you should vote.
Okay.
So there will be a whole market that will form around it.
So this is my question on who it is, because I'm thinking of cancer, you've got a segment, and the critiques it got because people were pretty much throwing under the bus all of these science funding things because they didn't quite understand the end goal. So sort of back to education, like even if you present people with all the information skills, like how are you kind of gonna help people, how are you kind of gonna get out that long run, like full on analysis? And the second part is going back to what he was saying, how are you doing your thresholding? Because like you specifically, like anytime you see an amendment or a proposition or something, you have these really low voter rates, and at some point, like plus or minus one person is statistical average. So how are you guys going to handle kind of the math involved in voting and the different domain level knowledge needed to vote on something?
Okay. Once again, I mean that's gonna come when we're ready to build a system, and hopefully we'll be able to find enough talent that could arrive at those solutions. I mean, we believe the technology certainly exists to be able to tally votes accurately. So, I know that's a really simple answer.